All right, Scano, we're going to get started. Scano Suguego, Dieta Snake Yaso, Watahioni, Nate Niwaga Shoutda, Gayokono, Nate Niwakwanzota. I am the cultural support worker here at Six Nations Polytechnic, so part of my position is being able to help the students here reconnect with the culture and the traditions and identity mainly. So grief is something that has deeply impacted me in my life, and something that helped me when I went through that was going back to the culture and tradition. So Nyawa for coming and Nyawa for being here. I'm going to bring up Bineta Howie Deer, sorry, and she's going to do our opening today. So Nyawa.
What kono horado sego so guego sorry gnyata hawi ni jets kwari ni wagit der roda gnyaka haga ni go honjoda svega ni de wagano the nasni was a gere ni go hon ni wago seriago no an gaderi one ho dogwa ni giga de geri what the got the neck and order dunsera. So my name's Gnyata Hawi Deer, Mohawk Bear Clan from Six Nations. I'm going to do the opening for you guys today. Hanagadigiga ni Jock does it with the Hosias, Igari Hoendako und and the Hondagar with Deco, Negan or the Dunsera. Yuri Hoanaji chatting is a ragan and Nazan Guarhasagan or the Dunsera and did the Watkawe. Then said there were no horadiness and go at this under the deity no horde dunizio, go in a home dancer or wine and dam gone to Dium Zade. Anagadiscatne and the one of Dunia with Zinigari was and got the one of Gotanya Negiga de Gari what the got to Negan or the Dunsera. Tagadineta again on Guanigura. I go ask an edgy the Wahu and Unina on Guanigura than a day Tina Horada and go soon. I nagari Zade. The Tina Horada Ziniago soon. I say go to the Dudge in a Hodosagari on the nest and go at Dizo. Negadiwa, he said, go young Guano, I did what did he what Dajat there. So go at this only rewarded you chat of Nizardaga Scana the dead one who rather than a Scana de one of Tunio. Zinagari was there, got the warning gone to Zimzade. Tagadigo and did what the Mayando, Scana than dead one who rather. Togadina Tohagan on Guanigora. Go ask an edgy the Wahu and Unina on Guanigora than a day at Tina Horadane. Jijogora sit the Gazaragon and 18 is Tahatet in Horonco than a Guagazin Hode Yahweh. You was it a Godogani Jacoids in the Sagari Honde. Tagadigo did the way on the dead Tina Horadan 18 is Tahamonza. Togadina Tohagan on Guanigora. Go ask an edgy the Wahu and Unina on Guanigora than a day at Tina Horadane. I got Negaruni get where it's on Zade. Ganyadara Runia got he Hodena, got Negawanas than a Yohnuar at Dunya and Zon Hequahage, Nega discana, I do enough Dunyage. Tagadigo did the way on the dead Tina Horada Nega Negarunia. Tagadina Tohagan on Guanigora. Go ask an edgy into the Wahu and Unina on Guanigora than a day at Tina Horadane. Nyatega Hundage than a Onokwa soon on Wahaya Jim Zade, or Tunua Garunia Noko Wahaya. Then an Enegadogania got Sastansera, Gayatagan Hunter and Godunze. Tagadigo did the way on the dead Tina Horadane. Nyatega Hundage than a Onokwa soon. Tagadina Tohagan on Guanigora. Go ask an edgy to the Wahu at Nunina and Guanigora, then a day to know where other Zinika have when yat the Wayage, then a nena got go what they go on and they got near Dessa. Neneka dog and near Gayat again Hartera, I godos and Nana Az and Jagan Hequanage. Tagadigo did the way on the dead to know where other ne, Wahianiota. Tagadina Tohagan on Guanigora. Go ask an edgy to the Wahu at Nunina and Guanigora, then a day to know where other ne go dear, go didakanujets, then a nena got go what they go on and that was Skinundu. Then I only did down good did you nudges, then I got go what they go on in the Agwix. And Gagwenia shot Janet, they go dear your nega discana, I am not the Yahaga, what you're again, and a scana you had the nama. Tagadigo, and did they were the way on the dead in the Horadine, go dear your good didakinujets, then I did down go and go did you nudges, Tagadina Tohagan on Guanigora. I go ask an edgy into the Wahu at Nunina and Guanigora. Then a day in the Horadine, you're in Dodu, the Nunyatega Guira de Wahaya Jim Zade. A Tunua Garunia no go higher than an Nana got go what they go on and oh, wahta. You know, as he said, go young go out that Tarihage, no not Gahuisto, the Nede or whatever. Tagadigo did the way on the dead in the Horada net, you're in Dodu, the Nunyatega Guira de Wahaya Jim Zade. Tagadina Tohagan on Guanigora. I go ask an edge into the Wahu and Nunina on Guanigora than a day in the Horada nest to go the Natsarayani John Hequa. Then I asked the Guntadina Quinn, and honest there was a head than a Uzera. Eki John Hatchery Hawana Gantazim Zade, Nenny not the Darius to go the Natsarayani. A Tagadigo did they were the way on the Detina Horada and John Hequa. Tagadina Tohagan on Guanigora. Agwego askana zide the wahwe nuni na ngwani gora dana de yatina horada ne ka yerdi ni ka werage. Nene ka doga zinu when you didn't de verino yo the arda there that dina dunkwa. Ki nues ka na ani join ne de yon warwarie. Taga di gwego de de wayan de detina horada ne ka yerdi ni ka werage. Taga dina taga na ngwani gora. Gwego askana zide the wahwe nuni na ngwani gora. Dana de yatina horada yat de wat sutus na tudur de dakwa yung kisum togora di weras de tina horunkwa. Haudenosaunee hagari hoen dakwa azia sago de negan and agwego zina honda sagwain towi ganta zim tate. Dana oni the hadishnit ne agwego zina honda the wine dam. Taga di gwego and the what de mayan the dead tina horada ne kisin togora di weras. Taga di night the hagana angwani gora. Gwego askanazin de wahwe nuni na angwani gora dana de tina horado. Dana de tsidawana horado agira raskarna get de ko tsidawatia de tsidawana horunkwa jaka neka garakwa. Zid songo swate danis tana zira dari hata gwego na wana dam kanti zihum zade negativa he gwego yedinise ge zinia zira awareness and gwe dizo. Taga di gwego and the what they wayan the tidawano horado raskarna get de ko tsidawatia de tsidawana horunka jaka neka garakwa. Taga di naita hagena gwani gora. Gwego askanazi de wahwe nuni na angwani gora dana de tina horado santa neka hni the rajat siti sote de tina horunkwa. Agahane na ne idea diri hwe na wago ne jana taweza nega diwahi azada hodida hajara diksam go jini sagri hunde. Taga di gwego de wayan de tina horado ne asanta neka hni the rajat siti sote de tina horunkwa. Taga di na to hagena angwani gora. Agwego askanazi de wahwe nuni na angwani gora dana de tina horado yuji sto korin yujit gari hidajets oni yung kisin toga de tina horunkwa. Nenega doga niyo zagari hondashi nekti uonizera danyo ya wate de wayan deri gwego. Nekti sego ga doga niyo yujisto korin yujit gari hidajets. Toga di gwego de wayan do detina horanda ne yujisto korin toga di naita hagena angwani gora. Hagwego askanazi in the wahwe nuni ne angwani gora. Dana de tsidawa no horado tsidawa gwana skanya dariyo. Zina hodoma toni go raya desengway dizo sa gayanda negari honarantsar gantarzi humzade. Sugway desoni wahori hundaji asangway harago siji chatting with his raga kanora dunsara de watkahwe. Dana oni donzahari wayanto de negari wheel. Taga di gwego de wadewayanda de tsidawa no horado tsidawa gwana skanya dariyo. Taga dina to hangene angwani gora. Agwego askanazi in the wahwe nuni na angwani gora dana de tina horado gayeri ni angwe de gira di no ya ge herono. Skana de kia nyanda nega de gwego ga ni gora gira di ri wa kwarisho. Taga di gwego de wadewayanda de tina horado gayeri ni angwe de gira di no ya ge herono. Taga dina to hangene angwani gora. Agwego askanazi in the wahwe nuni na angwani gora dana de sidawa no horado na hage garo yagera nagere sangwe dizo. Chate un his rage segote angwa ko hajit snare radani dansra dana oni nero nukwa. Ya was it sego yuna deri huntonyo gwego wana dam got to humza di nega diskana ide not nyu hake. Toga di gwego and the wayanda the sidawa no horado na hage garo yagera nagere sangwe dizo. Toga di naita hagena angwani gora. Took ni orde ne eat wagadari what gani ne giga de gari what to go to neck and order dunsera. Doga otena se will get ni going home what don't easy I say what go with. Took ni go on again done on eto. Yeah.
Dani gadi, ino kori wa ronga ne to kara ne ko wana ke. E jitira tane itino kolado, jini kaya kari wa yanda ko handa kari wa te. Ne kana wala donsra. E ne yati yok ni gun. E na to mi wa ni gun. Na ko ni jini yongwe da ke e ari kono kolado. O wani se late, wani se ane. To skene wa he ni ongwa ni sra on don. Ko ni jini wa ni salotas ne ko ta wat ka to haje jini wa ni sali yo haki yo kunyo hak o ni ne onok wat ayo guado se ne jini wa ni salota to ka yo kunyo ne atstino kaati ne deswata banya ta ki amonto no ko ni ne no wa ni salade ne skano das kwenda nyo se get jinohoda swatunda ne jinoga de yano next jinohoda swatunda ne ena don't get what ni go. So I added on to give thanks to Ganita Howie for bringing our minds together in a proper fashion and express our gratitude for being together today. And I also mentioned that I'm thankful for how many of you are come together today. And I understand some of you travel quite a distance. I've seen a few of my friends from many hours away. I don't know where he went to. But they come from Akwesasne, some people. I didn't see the Ohio Hono yet, but maybe they're still on the road. Or are you here? Is anybody here from Allegheny, Ohio? Heterogus? Okay. So I welcome you all who travel in here. He is right here. Looking way back here for you. Huh? And also Akwesas Hono. So I imagine you enjoyed hearing that Mohawk, huh? Sahayon Wezo. What they were yesterday. Wahe Ganyeta Howie. I had to do a ceremony this past week for a family here that still has Mohawk language speakers that were raised with it. So it was kind of a nice challenge for me. I had to use my brain. I would call myself functionally fluent in Mohawk. I've never taken a class or nothing, just from listening to our old folks, and that's how I learned. So I had opportunities to sit with people that talk the language and ask them, pester them how to say this and that, and am I saying this right? And they'd say Sade Nyanda. So Sade Nyanda, and then if you make a mistake, they'll help you. So it was nice to have them kind of teachers. And I had a couple of teachers who would make fun of you too. When you make a mistake, all over you. And they won't let you forget it, and then you all of a sudden you're like, I'll never make that mistake again. That's that old school, you know. And I think about that old school, they call it. We have our own brand, Haudenosaunee Old School. So our elders and that were pretty stern about things and very fixed in their ways, you know. I think that's something we're kind of losing too in our families, just looking around. That anchor, I guess you would say, and they're very fixed in the way things have to be. So anyway, so I give thanks for everybody coming together. I also mentioned that it's medicinal, even this what season we're in. We're seeing the changing of the days, and some of you, I said you should enjoy the outdoors a little bit right now, and you're witnessing the change of season. The birds are coming back. Yesterday was the first day I seen a red-winged blackbird. And it seems like this about every day another bird arrived. We're making syrup, pretty busy with that this last month or so. So I'm outside quite a bit. My family take part in that, and it's good. That's good medicine in its own way. So it's hard work though. But noticing the birds, almost every other day there's another bird. And I heard these birds very far up in the sky, and I never heard that. I was like, did I hear this before? It was a call of those birds, whatever kind they were, I never heard before. So my son got over, and I was trying to replicate that sound. He was just laughing. He was pretty entertained by it. He says, let me check this out. He gets on his phone, and I'll be darned if he didn't find it. So it was those sandhill cranes. You ever hear those or see them? They get a very distinct call. They were way up in the sky. They just passed through. I could hear them, and I was like, man, it was just calm out. Wondering where they're going. The only place I've really seen those is Wisconsin and Oneida when we go out there. They're always along the road across from their longhouse there. Anybody seen those there? You're like, what the heck are those big birds? Me and my son are always admiring the feathers on them. They make a nice headdress, I bet. Got a nice color. And they're almost as big as an ostrich. Anyways, I just give thanks. And so today I was asked to come and to speak a little bit about our traditional teachings and dealing with death and grief, mourning, losses, and healing. So I'll do my best. My sidekick couldn't make it, and he was supposed to join us today, Tom Porter. Him and I are always kind of picking on one another, and he'll pick me to help sometimes, and sometimes I'll pick him and say, get Tom too. We need that comic relief mixed into the fray, huh? He's got a natural. I said, Tom, if you ever didn't make the cut on what you ever done in life, you could have been a stand-up comic, top of the roster there. He got that natural born comedic sense about him. And anyways, we done this a few years back. I don't remember the year, but some of you were there, Tom Porter and I. And the reason that came about was there was a lot of death and tragedy and a lot of tragic death happening to our families. So one of the departments here, one of the agencies asked if we would be willing to talk to our people in the community and try to share some teachings and some perspective, traditional knowledge about dealing with this, because it's overwhelming. And that's what we try to do, is do our best to put our knowledge together and to work together and try to help people navigate their way through. And I think that there's not one family amongst our nations that haven't been hit in some way. And for some reason, we're having a lot of deaths. And I remember a few years ago, about 3 years ago, we got a really super mild winter. I mean, it just barely froze a few years ago. And one of the older guys, he says, when it's like this, he says, you're going to be burying a lot of people. So I don't know where he got that from or nothing, but I never forgot that because it seemed like it come true. So every week, death or two happen. And it's like that in Haudenosaunee too. Been quite a few people passing. I don't know about Oneida. Anybody here from Oneida over here? No? I don't know. But they were losing a lot of people too. So I don't know why we're in this phase of things, but we're passing through this where there's a lot of people passing on. Some of it natural cause, and some of it, like tragedy or trauma. So that's it doesn't hurt any less or any more. We are in the same boat where we're trying to figure our way through this, and still enjoy the days. So before I begin with anything, I just want to acknowledge everybody here, and that I know that you're here for a reason, and I hope that it's helpful today, and you find something that will help you, another step. So that's really what it is taking steps. So you have to just take steps one step at a time, and try to keep your mind and your eyes open to what would help. And in our tradition, I find that finding a way to help others is also medicinal and helpful, dealing with grief. So that is one thing I've learned from observation, is by helping others, it helps you with your grief and your mourning, and it helps you take another step, I guess, towards healing. And so that feeling, I think about this when there's a loss. So our ancestors passed down the knowledge, the generation, and we don't know how far back that knowledge extends. We're in our thoughts. Some of the knowledge go back to the start of time. I heard elders talk, and there's some elders in the room here sat with us too. So I heard them talk about when the human beings first died, the first generation of our ancestors. I heard our elders talk about that. Says that life was meant to be everlasting, and we still say that at our funerals, the longhouse funerals. How we what's he sake? That means we would all ripen. That's what that literally means. We would all live to old age of maturity. So this, what happened was, if you remember the creation story, there was a good twin and his evil brother. So there was two boys that were twins. They were born the same time on earth. So they went about, and one was creating good things, and his brother was trying to outdo him and overdo and overpower him and to spoil what he was doing. So this is what it talks about, the Creator. When He made human beings, He blew the life into them. They say He puffed 3 lives and 3 breaths into us. That's what they say. He blew 3 times, and that's when our hearts start pumping. So we're breathing His air that He breathed into our ancestors. So when He thought all of the humans will live to a ripe old age, and He knows how many days that will be, how many years we'll have. And then His brother come along, and he made sicknesses, and He made things that could take a life out suddenly. Even plants, there's poison plants that could destroy a life. So He put these things here that would shorten our days, they say, and cause us problems. So that's when it began, where all of a sudden human beings start to run out of breath at a young age or at any age. So in the early times, the first human beings were roaming about, and one fell all of a sudden. And they didn't know what to do with that, our ancestors, so they picked him up, stood him back up, walked on, and he fell again. And they stood him up again, and he just crumbled. Here he had died, and they never saw that before. So at that time, they didn't know what to do, so they just set him aside. They didn't know if he's going to wake up or what. They're just waiting. And all of a sudden, the ones who were closest to him began to cry. They had that mournful feeling, huh? They had a feeling that of grief and sadness and loss, and that feeling we get, you know. So they start to cry. They start to lose their composure about it, because they're like, this person won't wake up again. So they didn't know what to do. So the Creator sent this man to come and teach them about it. And He says, well, this is what we're going to do now, because the brother, the evil brother, has spoiled now that everyone would live to a ripe old age. Now you're going to see people are going to drop like this, and their breath is just going to stop. So that's actually the word we use to this day, is the breathing has stopped. Tan Jagong Shrat, or Tan Disahong Shrat if it's a male. If it's a male, Tan Disahong Shrat. Yat Disahong Sad Anadaga. If it's a female, Tan Jagong Shrat. And that's what that means. Her breathing has stopped. That's all it means. And that's on earth. The breathing has stopped on earth. So there's the Ohio gang. I feel like all rise. No, just kidding. Yawan scared, no. Swatsi guato. We were just waiting patiently for you like this, huh? That's some of my relatives over here. Is only some way that ganeta hawi. Ne tika yagok staha. Ewanio ne onondowa ga. Aha. Yeah, so I was just going over a story that I heard them talk about when the first humans passed away, that they didn't know how to deal with it. So they placed the body up, and the Creator sent this man, and he brought them together, and they fixed the body up how we do, dress them and clean the body and dress it for burial, because they're going to meet the Creator's land. So we fix them up in the best way we can to send them on their journey. So he said, from now on, that's what's going to happen, is people are going to stop, their breathing is going to cut off at a certain number of days, and their life on earth is going to expire, but they're going to journey on in the spirit form. So this is how it's going to be. So he took them to the river, and he said, we're going to cross the river here. And they crossed the river, and then the thing they were crossing was, some say vine, it broke, and some stayed on this side of the river. On that side, they camped. And then he says, the eldest ones on each side of the river, pay attention to any bird or animal that you see. And when we come in the morning, we're going to come together again. We'll talk about it. So they come together on the one side of the river. They might have seen, like the wolf and some of the bird clans. And then on the other side, they've seen like the deer and the bear and things. So he said, sit just like you were at that river, and he sat him by the fire. So on the one side of the fire, some clans over here. I like using the Onondawaga clans. The birds are on this side and the animals on that side. Very clear. I don't know if you're still like that, but that's what the old folks told me. Is that still how you sit? Yeah. So the birds are on one clan side and the animal, the other, the four-legged and so on, are on the other side. Brenda's sitting here, yeah, right on. Sandra, too. Very clear. That's the only nation, I think, as well, that has that. It's like that, where the birds are on one side of the clan of the fire and the animals are on the other side. That's how they divide. So with that loss, he said, from now on, you're going to have these two sides of the fire. Tati Jahon, that we call that. And it's going to be used to help one another through this grieving and through this loss. When people's breathing stop, it's not going to end. We're going to see this happen now. People are going to expire on earth and their breathing will stop, but their spirit inside will journey on where it come from. So if you think about it, back to the start of time, we're only occupying a body. It belongs to the earth. So the body going back to the earth where it was formed from. But inside of us is our Twaishra, some call it that. I've heard different names. Awayatne, Unheko, some call it that. I think I like that one, but that word kind of died out. That sort of means your life. Twaishra, that's your spirit, your soul. So we have different traditional words and concepts about it. What your body is going to return to the earth when your breathing stops, and your Satwaishra is you become a ball of light and air, and you're going to journey on back where it come from. So that's what this messenger come, and he separated our people, two sides of the fire. This clan side over here, if somebody stops breathing and their life ends on earth, then we're going to call them Haudenosaunee. That you hear the sonda in there for language learners, huh? Darkness, huh? So Haudenosaunee, the ones in darkness. So that's what we call that side that has the loss of they've lost someone. Haudenosaunee, that means they're in darkness. And the other side of the fire, we're going to call them Haudenosaunee. And that's a difficult term to interpret. Haudenosaunee is another way. That's the thing about our language. You can say it in groups, or you can just say it, Haudenosaunee, sounds like a woman, but that's describing society. So that's something to think about there. Haudenosaunee sounds like a woman, and that's the clear-minded side. So on this side, the darkness, they're in darkness of mourning, a loss, and this side here is a clear mind, Haudenosaunee. She has a clear mind. What's interesting about that word, it actually sounds like raw. Haudenosaunee. The mind is still raw. So that's the literal meaning of that, but it means the sides that mind is clear yet. So this side here, this clan side here, in darkness because they lost someone. Everything feels dark. Darkness has set in on them. Haudenosaunee. So that's what their tradition has been passed down. So the messenger the Creator sent says from now on, the man had quit breathing. Which side was he on? So then that side become Haudenosaunee. He says, now this side here, you become clear-minded. You have to look after the other side. Help them through this period of grief and take care of things for them. And he laid down the rules. So the clan side that you belong to, you have a responsibility. If you're on that side with the clear mind, you have to reach out and help. So in the olden times, you go across the fire to ask for help. And I think we still try to do that, but sometimes it's not possible. Huh? But that's what the tradition should be. Is it still like that in Ohio? You just go across the other side? Yeah? So now and again we can do that here. Now and again we're that poor, we got to just help however we can help. So sometimes it works out that way. That's the first try, is you go across the fire and try to get a help across the clan side to help. Because they're considered really not immediate family and they're not immediately affected. That's the theory of it. So if you belong to this clan side, your mind you have to harden up and toughen up your mind and say, I got to help these people. Now go back to what I was saying earlier. The reason that's like that, because helping out helps you. If you're mourning, if you're grieving. So that's why I think it's like that. So the creators give us this so that if you belong to this clan side, even though you knew the person died, or maybe you were close to them, but because you're across this clear-minded side, you have to sharpen your mind and help. And that's in turn going to help you to heal from this loss as well. So these are some of the things passed down that we don't always think about, I guess, or talk about, but helping out when there's a loss helps you to get past your own grief and your own loss as well. So the tendency is not to want to do, you don't feel like doing anything. If you get in a state of grief, like in that loss, you don't feel like doing anything and nothing feels too good anymore, And so you got to kind of push yourself and say, if I help out, maybe that'll help not only that family, but myself in healing. So that's the teaching of that, why I shared that little story I heard from our elders. There's more to it, but we're not going to sit here all day. Homework for you. I know some of you would know that. But it's a story about how we picked that up to have two sides of the clans to help one another to mourn and to heal when we have losses. So that messenger also said, this is going to continue on. So you got to sharpen up and you got to follow a process to help heal for this, because death is going to be coming. And you don't know who's going to follow this person. So some of that words in there are things you'll hear at a longhouse funeral. When somebody passes, we'll say, Tat did YND, Ajundat Nundrage, or Asoma Nundrage. So you hear that Asoma, that means he's back. That means we don't really know who's going to be behind their back when they leave. Who's going with them? Who's next behind them? So Ajundat Nundrage, or Asoma Nundrage. By the way, you will be tested on these phrases before you leave. I see some of you just writing frantically too. You can't have lunch till you pass the test. But some of these phrases like that are helpful too if you think about it. It kind of gives you a glance, and it gives you a perspective that's old. It's been passed down. So even if you think about it, when you suffer a loss, it is nice if somebody outside the immediate family comes to offer help, whether that be a friend or a neighbor or someone else. Like, it's a good uplifting feeling to see that person come in and you're in a state of grief or mourning. It's like that's almost medicine coming in the door for you. So it's food for thought that connects back to the time the first human being quit breathing on earth. We were given a message of how to take care of that and take care of one another, and that will help us to heal. So our law, and I've really stressed this, that we are very proud people, Haudenosaunee Nation. We're very proud. We're one of the last nations left still standing in the world, indigenous. There's others, but we're one of the last few. Now, what makes us stand as a nation of people? It's our culture. It's our language. It's how we carry ourselves. And our languages are important too. We got to carry them languages. Support the ones who are working at it and the ones who are keeping it going. That's what makes us unique in this world. Our unique culture, our identity, our languages, our traditions. It's really good to see. It warms my heart when there's a loss in a family is in a state of grief, or we call Haudenosaunee, they're in this darkness. It never fails, no matter what end of the res you're on here, because I do a lot of the funeral speaking and feasts, 10-day feast, 1-year feast. No matter what end of the res I'm on, their neighbors and friends come over with food. And they just know that that's the right thing to do. And it lifts them up too. And I'm sitting there going, it lifts me up too. But I see that practice as no matter what corner of the res I go to, that practice continues. And that needs to be something that we continue, make sure that continues. Because that's healing and medicine in itself. It's even just taking that time and fixing up a nice platter of food, and you've thought about this family in darkness. So when you show up there with some food, that's medicine. This is you coming in the door with that. And that's medicine for that family that's mourning, and that's medicine for yourself. Because you've done something that you know is helpful to someone else. And that's what feeds your soul. And I'm really proud to see that. That's something really warms my heart. And sometimes I'm having a bad week or a bad day sometimes, and I see that, and it changes my thinking, you know. So I can only imagine what it does for that family. You've thought about them and prepared something, and come there and give them kind words and just let them know you're thinking of them and there for them, you know, and any way you can help. So the Haudenosaunee Nation, we have laws that our Creator sent to us. We have processes that our Creator sent here to help us. It's not to get the upper hand of someone. It's to help us along. So that's what we've been disconnected from as a people, as families, from this residential school, boarding school and that. And that's what they attacked. Those, I would say, in the white man's world, you'll say they attacked those institutions that make us who we are. But we never abandoned them. Thank goodness. We had stubborn elders, huh? Pretty well every family had somebody pretty stubborn. And that stubbornness helped us to survive. So I'm not saying be a stubborn person, but you got to have the wherewithal and the determination in you, you know. And at a longhouse funeral, I've been trained by the speakers before me what should be said. And one of the words you'll hear, swagadaniyado, or swagataniyad. Now, yada is your body or your being. Nilatste. How about I use a little mohawk, eh? Oronya? Ah, Runda. Ne gadi. Tuga angilo ne eswa nikora nilatste. You hear that? Oh, nilatste. Strong, huh? So we're offering you words to help strengthen up your mind and your thoughts. So that's some of the words passed down is an offer of these thoughts to strengthen your mind and your thoughts. Because your mind, your thoughts weaken, your body will weaken. So that outside visitor telling you these words of comfort and encouragement, sometimes that just helps you turn the feeling you have. Right then and there, you might feel different. So that's why it's important, and I know that's probably the most uncomfortable thing, to reach out to somebody that you know is grieving and sad. But that's really our tradition. So our nation, and I like saying this to the non-natives, I do a lot of public speaking, you know, over the years. Sometimes our council sends me to represent our people. And I make sure that they know the Haudenosaunee Nation, we're still standing. We're still here. We're maintaining and re-strengthening. And we're trying to get reorganized. We're trying to revitalize what's important to our people. And we're cherishing the ones who carried on our traditions and our languages. But one of the things in our laws, it talks about Gandao or Gandala Moha. Gandao. And it's compassion. Caring, that's a law. And I tell non-natives or other country people that we wish we'd impose that on every foreigner come to our land, to have a law of Gandao and Gandalo. Because that's what is really needed in the world, is to have that compassion and caring But you know what's attached with that? Getting down, that law? Then what again the wash yagi. So to have care and compassion, that means we must assist one another. So it's in our laws, it's in the books of our laws to be helpful to others. So you're obligated to help your fellow human beings. That's under our law. That's what makes us Haudenosaunee, is helping others. So that goes hand in hand when you're grieving. You rely on others to help. That's such a big task. There's been a couple of funerals just in this last week I've attended. And sometimes there's such a huge crowd, they'd fill this room and then some. In fact, they do, right, Becky? Sometimes they do feed them here. Sometimes over at the hall, it's too big of a crowd for the house. But there's some still feed them at the house too. That just happened the other day. Which is the way that it usually is eat at the house. But to help one another, when you're hit with the burden of a loss, you're already feeling the weight of it, and you're in darkness, and your world is spinning. So you need others to have that getting down. So, and it starts right away with them in looking for help. They look outside because the family in the house you're grieving, you're mourning. So you got to look outside for help. And that's where that comes in, that law of getting down. That what the wash yagi. So in fact, the elders that I sat with, they told me, you're really not supposed to refuse when they come to you for help. Try your best to abide by that. And that's somewhere where we fall down these days. We can't always be there for somebody comes to you for help, you can't always do it. Not because you don't want to. They're just getting pulled in too many directions. We're cut pretty slim, those of us that do these things. Mind you, we're on the expansion of people able to speak and do these things, though, and help our people mourn and grieve and take proper care when someone leaves her. So I'm thankful for that. But that law of getting down, compassion and caring, and that's what again wash yagi. We have to support one another and help one another through, along. Those are things that will help yourselves, help ourselves on our healing and our grieving. And I don't know if you realize it, but that's part of the equation when you're trying to overcome grief. And you usually, you'll hit a period of time where you just don't know what to do. I see people get that happen. It happens to all of us in some way, where you don't know what to do. I have that feeling a lot. I don't know what to say. And then you don't want to say the wrong thing either. So I just say something really small. And then sometimes that's all they needed to hear. I care about you. I hope you feel better tomorrow. I hope you're feeling better. And I hope that, the family can find their way through okay. So that's about all you can think of. But there's no book on that, what you should say. Just reach out and help, or let them know you're there to help, and that'll help you. So that began with the first human that passed, to have this caring and this reciprocal, I wouldn't know if you'd say mutual aid or reciprocal aid, so that when this side has a loss on this side, they're now the ones who are not dying. Remember what that is? Language question. Who remembers what that is? Darkness. There you go. You hear that sound in there. Is it the same in Seneca? You would just. Oh, gee. Oh, okay. So that's a word that we use. Godiado wisdom. Pretty near the same, huh? That's Cayuga. Yeah. Godiado wisdom. I pick up Seneca pretty fast. This is one of my language teachers over here. Pretty thankful they have a family or two out there still. Pretty good with language. But they're working hard too. Aga iwaga steak. Aga doing so, but sa aga iwaga steak. Now what is what doing is doing it. At one honyo ko inijon ni diswayo. See, I can fumble my way with Nundawaga too. I'm out there a few times a year. So, anyways, learning language has helped me in my journey as well. Learning language, and it's a challenge too. You know, it's not easy. It's a challenging, and I think that's what helped me to have that perspective about it. This is a challenge I'm going to take on, and that's the perspective I set in my mind. I'm going to take this challenge on. I'm going to try to challenge myself to learn, be a little better with Mohawk language or Seneca language. We lost our Seneca speakers probably, I'm going to say probably 15, 20 years back. But I remember hearing Seneca here now and again. So that's probably your relative here. Probably was. But well, I can remember hearing Seneca a few times now and then, you know, like in my younger days. But wish I would have paid more attention to them. That's my hindsight. So with the grieving and the loss, and I guess healing from it, sometimes we don't get to that stage too easy. And that's what I think is the challenge for us. The grieving and the loss, that comes naturally. But healing from it, it takes work. That's the reality. So it takes work to heal from that and to overcome that and to be able to move forward. So a way I would best describe it is it's like when you join up at a gym and you paid for your year membership, and that's your New Year's resolution. A lot of people do that. But it's up to you to get your butt there. And that usually, for most people, it lasts about maybe 3 months or less. A month, more like it. See, I didn't want to insult nobody, but I want to insult nobody, but yeah. But the thing is that in your mind, when you're grieving too, you feel like, man, I gotta do this and do that, and I gotta get out of this darkness. And it's in your mind usually. Your mind is trying to tell you what you need to do, but it's harder to get up and do it because you're in that state. So it's almost like practicing meditation or signing up at the gym. You've got to work at your habits and how to achieve this, to get there. It's like a discipline. That's what it is. So I always say that even with our laws and things, that, yeah, the Creator gave us ganikuyo, ganigohriyo, but He didn't force it. You've got to work at it. And it's like mastering a discipline. It's the same way with healing from grief. It's a discipline you're trying to perfect. How to deal with it, because death is going to happen again. So you've got to kind of work at that discipline. Discipline yourself on it. And allow yourself time to grieve. You need that. You need time to grieve. And you also got to know when it's time to get outside and get some fresh air and change the day, how your days are going. And that's simply all it takes sometimes, is to change up your routine, get out in that fresh air. And one of the old chiefs there, I remember when I was a teenager, I had a rough time. And in fact, I was starting to question why I'm on the earth in my mind. So he says, sometimes, he says, you got to change up what you do. He says, what time do you get up? And I was kind of embarrassed to say, about 8. I say, about 10 minutes before my school bus. No, I went through a little phase of that too. I was afraid to say. I said, I'm not going to say, I don't get up early as you. Let's just leave it at that. Because most of the old folks, they're up by 6 or so or more, or maybe even earlier. I'm one of them now. I used to laugh about it. It's not funny no more. But that's what he told me. He says, if you're not feeling good, he says, you got to change up what you're doing and change up, discipline yourself to If you don't feel like going anywhere, make yourself go somewhere, even if it's just outside and walk around your property. Go down by the water. He said, the water is healing to the mind. And I never heard no one say that before. I said, what? I live right next to the Grand River. I could throw a stone in the river. How is it healing? And that's all he said is that. He says that it has the power to help clear your thoughts. And I kind of experienced that along the waters. You kind of feel differently, you know. So it does have a power there. But he also taught me something else, which I never had someone teach me, was he says, you got to really face those thoughts you have right head on. So if this thought is making you feel bad, what is it? And he says, what I use, he says, I use the leaf, because I guess his grandma taught him that. And this leaf is that thought that's pulling your mind. Set that leaf there, and then the next thought, and another leaf. And he took them leaves and threw them in the water and asked them, take that away so your mind is clear, even for today. So you have a clear mind today. So that's something he told me. That was a strategy he showed me. And I used it. The other thing he told me, back to what time you get up, he says, you know, he got talking about this great law, and he says that it referenced a part in there when he was talking, and I'm going to say it in the language first. And I know a couple of you are disqualified, but I'm going to ask you if you can tell what he's saying there. In the great law, it says that ne ahatke, ne gwas sitsi hagwadi, ne ase the window there, go na watke than the gahwit gas. Tos ne niwe ne ahatke. Spencer, you're up. Were you able to get it? Some of it? Yeah? Anybody else understand that? Right? He'll get up early, but I described the time there, huh? Yeah, I'll say the window there. Yeah?
When the sun was new.
Yeah, go senyo, then the gach we.
Before the sun was new.
Right. So he told me to get up when day breaks. I'll say the window there. So get up before day breaks. I get up when the day breaks, and that time until the sun comes up. So he was saying this like that, and he says, how many of you, there's a few of us young people sitting there, maybe 3 or so, he goes, how many of you know what I'm talking about here? Not one hand went up. He said, that's what's wrong with you. You don't know what that time is. There's your prescription, next. He didn't know it, but that's what he done, because that helped me. So he said that period of time of the morning is medicine for the mind. So when the day breaks, and he says, how long before the sun rises? None of us knew that. So there's your homework for you. There's a period of time when day breaks, up until the sun rises. That's the time, he says, for your mind. So get out in that air, take even just a nice walk. And when you go outside, what's the first thing you do? That's our login. We're thankful to our Creator of all living things. So having that gratitude helps to fix your mind and set you on your day in the proper way. So that's a couple of strategies that I got from somebody who didn't realize I was really needing that, or maybe he did. But he gave me a couple of tools for the toolbox, you know. And I did realize, well, I need to get up earlier, because when you're grieving and you're mourning, you don't even feel like getting up. I went through that. Probably every one of you sitting here have had some level of that, and some it's more heavy on some. That's the reality. So the other thing I think that helped me is to realize, well, if he knows these things he shared, there must be others felt like that. I don't feel like getting up. I was wondering why I was here on earth at the time, questioning. So he helped me to navigate through that. And then I realized a lot of other teenagers come along, they go through that. So it's important to arm them with the tools to navigate through that. And of course, I had an aunt lived up on the hill, and she was tough love. Come up there, what the hell's wrong with you? So you need a little bit of that in your world too, huh? You're a damn young guy. I remember she said, you're so damn young, snap out of this damn thing. But I didn't feel like doing anything, I remember that. And around that time there, I crossed paths. Well, was in school, and I crossed paths with family that were really into artwork. And I think we had a class or a project or something. They said we're going to do a little bit of carving, soapstone carving, or anything else. There was some other crafts that you could do. And here I realized I kind of had a knack for that. I liked it. So I connected with a family that was right into that. And that turned everything around in my world. Connecting with the art world and art. And one of the grandfathers of that family, he was a Kruger chief, he says, I think it's the artists that will keep the culture going. Because when you get into arts and crafts, you're trying to recreate our symbols, and then you got to learn what this symbol means. And you're also researching our old stories of our past, our traditional stories and teaching, and you're bringing that to life. So you're actually keeping these things going in your own way, keeping our traditions going. So people that are struggling, I usually encourage them to try to take up a new hobby, whether it's craft making or give your hand at art, even scrapbooking. Huh? If you're like me, I can't draw so good, but I try. I don't ever quit trying, but I can sculpt. I've made monuments. I've been commissioned. But for some reason, I can't draw as good. But also, he taught me with artwork that you can't always be perfect. And he says, the Creator made human beings less than perfect. So he says, this is why you have these teachings. Your job in this world here is to keep learning these teachings. And it's going to last you the rest of your life, is learning and studying and listening, teachings. Because there's teachings in every family passed down. So it's a never-ending thing that once you get on the path of learning, learn our traditions and our teachings, languages, arts and crafts, even learning our symbolism and things. That's a whole journey there. Whether you do beading or making there's a lot that like sewing and things and making our designs on our clothing, and whether it's making a new outfit for ganoses or ceremonies, or even making something to give to somebody. You can't imagine the feeling you get out of that, because you're brightening up someone else's day. So these are little things like this I learned along my path of dealing with grief and trying to help others. It's a never-ending thing for the village, especially for our villages. You know you're going to lose someone. It happens, whether you want it to or not. So we have to strengthen up. That's to say there at the funeral. That means strengthen up. So at a time of loss, the encouragement is for you to strengthen up. So that's the message to the crowd, to find a way to strengthen up our being and our existence. That's the encouragement that's given. So like I was saying, practicing Ganikwiyo, the Creator don't make you. But he said that here, it says this is what it is, and this will help you if you can hold this Ganikwiyo up high of good mind. So it's a discipline you got to practice yourself. It's the same thing with healing from grief, I believe. It's like you got to kind of approach it as a discipline and a challenge. And get yourself pumped up for the challenge. You can do it. Because the Creator never put anything on this land to overwhelm us that you can't handle. And that's what I noticed. Like I deal with a lot of our people that are struggling or in grief or whatever, like whatever it might be that is inflicting families. Could be depression, could be suicidal people. Seen that too quite a bit. And I remember my aunt was a seer. A lot of the village helped her. She passed away now, but she used to work with me a lot, and we'd put our minds together to try help families. One time she says, you know what I see? She says, you got to toughen up. She says, there's going to be a lot of young people passing away. Because at the time, there wasn't a whole lot. And I thought, wonder how this is going to happen. Now we're seeing it. We're in the midst of that now. What she predicted, that's probably 15 years ago. It come through a reading she'd done for someone. We're going to start losing young people. Maybe more than 15 years ago. I didn't see it back then, but now I'm seeing it pretty well every month, at least. And there have been times when I see it every week. So then it pulls on my mind, pulls my health, and it pulls my balance off. So you got to recenter somehow. And that's the trick, I think, is finding what works to help you recenter yourself. So some of the teachings passed down in our funeral and our funerary protocols, there's little tidbits of things to help you along the way. So at the funeral time, when there's a loss, what happens is the family, the Haudenosaunee, they look out, try to go to the other clan side, the other fire side for a speaker, because that speaker should have a clear mind and come. So when you come to offer them words, it's almost like getting an independent third party to come and talk. There's no attachment to it. So then they're giving you really raw guidance about it and encouragement. So there's a mixture of encouragement, and there's a mixture of food for thought, and it's also a little bit of sternness about it, to be strong about you can survive this, because the Creator hasn't put nothing on this earth that we can't survive. He gave us options when we have challenges. We always have options. That's the other thing I learned from that elder that taught me about going to the river and stuff and putting them leaves in the water. Sort of leave those thoughts of grief and those things that are pulling on your mind and watch them float down the river. It's a symbolic thing, but it's a physical thing that you physically see this disappearing. So that helped me in my mind in its own way. And I've been trying to get up at that period of time ever since then, by the way. Some weeks I'm perfect with it, and other weeks my wife is like, you gonna get up? But it is medicinal. Get up at that time. Get up a little earlier. Try make yourself walk outside even for 5-10 minutes, walk around. Especially right now. You'll hear a different bird every other morning. Maybe see. There's some birds that just pass through this time of the year. I experienced that, and it's like the day, how it is. It's a beautiful day out there. But in your mind, it might feel dark, you know. That's the reality. So what happened is that our Creator gave us now and then teachings. He sent messages to us. So that was the one when the first human being passed away that I just discussed. Then he sent a message to bring our ceremony so that we'll come together now and again as a people and give thanks. He says it's very important to be thankful. Every season, he says, I've made it so you'll see something that'll benefit humans. Every season has some things we're to engage in. So right now, we're in the midst of the maple, the running of the sap. And you never know when it's going to end either. The sap is running good, but then it's getting so warm during the days, you got to be really watchful. So experience the seasons. That's also a part of your healing and wellness. Take part in that. If you don't have the stuff to tap the trees and to make the syrup and things, then find out where you can go. Take part in it and experience that. And when we first have a drink of this sap, we're supposed to give thanks to the Creator and then drink that, and it's medicinal. So every season has something like that that is medicinal for us, something new coming. After the sap, then the things you can gather from the bush start coming. So pepper roots and things like that. Next thing you know, wild onions, wild leeks, wild garlic. So I had an elder, and I seen that man dance eagle dance when he was 82 years old. I says, how did you do that? After we talked, he says, what? I had to show how to dance eagle dance. That's all. I said, I don't know how you stayed so agile. You're 82 or whatever. It was 81 or 82 years old. And he told me, he says, every season I try to experience that season to the fullest. So it is maple season, take part in it. If you don't have the things to tap your trees and make syrup yourself, go where they do it. Even if you just go one day, experience that and have that fresh sap. Get as much of that in you as you can in the season. It's medicinal. It's like renewing your system. So it's like a tune-up. Take part each season, it's another tune-up. A lot of people, I know myself, when I was a teenager, my aunt was starting to get a bit disabled, and I was kind of her gopher. Go for this, go for that, sort of thing. And she showed me where things grow. Showed me where to go get the onions, where to get the pepper roots and the onions and the wild leeks. Medicine too, in the spring. Go here, go there. There's a stump about halfway through this ravine. And then I'm looking for it, and she'll say, you'll see this tree, and this what the bark. She had a pretty good sense of that, what was there. So, yeah, I would go. I went with her when she was able to. But she started sending me after she got disabled. She couldn't go in the bush. So I was her gopher. Go get her wild onions. So after the sap season ends, wild onions are going to be out. Wild onions, wild leek, oh, I lost my train of thought on that. But my missus says they used to eat these things called fiddleheads. Huh? Is that what you call them? How many of you ever ate those? About a third, huh? She made me eat them. I'm usually just stepping on them when I'm in the bush. There's also wild asparagus. That started growing right near where I work. So one of the older guys come there, he goes, you know you got wild asparagus outside of your work? I go, no, what? Didn't know nothing about it. My head was just spinning. What? I never even heard of it. It's growing outside there. But mind you, it's only enough for a little snack for myself. I usually got to get there before them other guys. It's just a little bit there. But there is wild asparagus that grows. So homework for you. Try find that. See, it's good. I know that. But that's what, anyways, the elder, he danced the eagle dance. And with eagle dance, you really got to be agile. He danced, hopped around like that eagle, and he crouched right down, and he brung that feather fans up like that. 82 years old. I said, I want to be able to do that. What's your secret? Tell me now. And that's all he told me. Says you've got to experience each season there's something. Ancestral, that's what he called it. There's something renewing every season. And at the time he goes, what season do you take part in? And I hadn't taken part in nothing. I'm like, that's what's wrong with me. Don't know a darn thing about that. But I used to pick the onions and stuff for my aunt. She, like I say, I was her gopher. Go for this and that. And I never even used to like wild onions, and I'd have to go get a dang big bag of them. Just like, trying to get rid of that smell for a week. Now I can't get enough of them when they're out. So you can change, that's what I was saying. In your mind, you can change your thinking. In your mind, you can change how you feel. But you have to change up what you're doing, your routine a little. And that's what I think it comes down to. when I was first learning, like some of you know and some of you don't know, that I've been trained, I'm a trained speaker of our messages. So I'm a speaker of our Gaihuyo, our traditional teachings in the Longhouse, our ceremonial cycle, and the Great Law. So it took decades of training, I would say. I'm still in training, but I'm doing my best. That's all they told me. Just do your best. And that's all I'm doing. You do your best. So that kind of makes it less stress on you. You say, okay, I just got to try my best. So trying your best, sometimes you realize it's not always going to be at the top marks in the class, but it's the best you can do. So you try to do your best, even with dealing with grief. Now, them older folks would say, come on, snap out of that, get out of that. I remember elders telling me, quit crying, you know. I think that's why it's still to this day kind of hard for me to cry. I got to almost make myself cry. Take those wild onions every now and again, just because I need to cry, you know. But that's the reality, especially for us guys, you know. There's a handful of us guys in the room. I don't know what it is, but the women, the mothers, I think you're more sensitive and caring that way. You're connected, and you're no stranger. If you need to shed tear, you know you have to shed tear, you know. But for the guys, it's hard. I don't know why. Still trying to figure that one out. But our ancestors know that you need to shed tears sometimes. It's passed down. The shedding of tears is respectfully mourning losses. So that comes with that. Those tears are your memories, that's all. Well, your memories come out in those tears. But the thing is that if those tears don't stop, you need help. And that's only you that can figure that out when you need help. There's an appropriate time for that. An appropriate creator has allocated time for that, for grieving losses. And sometimes if we can't get over it in that time, so then we need other help. But you have to look for that help. And that's what's challenging. That's where you need somebody to reach out to you and say, you know, how can we help? And is there some way we can help with this? That's where it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to do that. But that's where we need to do better and helping one another, you know, what I see. And that's our tradition. Like I say, go back to our law, getting down. Then what again shagi. Having compassion and caring and helping mutually. It's a mutual and reciprocal assistance that's needed. Because someday you're going to need that too. So reach out and try and help, even if it's uncomfortable. Sometimes a person is just waiting for somebody to do that. So anyways, I kind of lost my train of thought here thinking about them wild onions. I'm wondering if they're out. My brain kind of wandered that way. But I would suggest you try and experience that. Try and experience that. Right now, it's still SAP is still running. There's still opportunity to get some fresh made syrup or drink some of that fresh sap and give thanks. So that's really what keeps us in balance, is interacting with Etinwa, Ohuenzagi, Mother Earth. Our interactions with Mother Earth, if you can strengthen that up, that'll help you with grieving and mourning and overcoming grief. Because it's a wondrous thing. It's a wondrous thing even this sap season. Nobody controls that other than each tree. And I tap so many trees. Those trees have their own characteristics about them. And the tree you think is going to give you the most production, next thing you know, you're barely getting drips in there. So those trees have their own characters too. Some of them will fill that pail up and be spilling on the ground. And you empty it, then you go back next day, it's spilling on the ground again. Just kind of, that's just the way nature is. So all living things, you think about it, they have a life just like we do. That's how many, all living things. Now when you're grieving, this is the last thing you're thinking about. All living things around you are continuing. everything is still in motion. There's energy moving, but you don't feel it. So that's why you need to interact and get outside and even just take a walk. Take someone with you, though, I think. Good idea. Experience that outdoor, the air, early morning air. Take part in the seasons as they're going along. So that old fellow that danced that eagle dance, he set me on that path, and I realized it helped me dealing with grief, and it helped me dealing with feeling healthier and happier. You know, it helps you with your mind. But he says, don't forget our laws now. You've got to give thanks before you take anything. Same thing with maple season. So we give thanks before we drink that medicine. So when we have ceremonies, we actually, the whole house does that. We'll have a give thanks and then have a drink of that sap. Not all the longhouses do that, but most of them do. Pass around that maple drink, and everybody gives their thanks for being healthy and seeing this season again. Because our prophecy says the day is going to come that maple is going to start to die from the top down. That's prophecy. So this is one of the reasons we get together in ceremony too. We're celebrating that this tree come to life again, and that sap move, and it's still in motion, and it's not dying. But I'll tell you this, I am seeing them getting sick. The maples are getting sick right now in my bush, and I don't know if it's like that in all the maple bushes. So homework for you too, guys. The land-based, is anybody here from land-based?
I went there.
Yeah?
I went back again in the fall, after the fall cycle.
So did you go for their maple season or no? Have you been there just recently?
Last year.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering if there's any staff here from.
And I graduated from there.
Good. Yeah, the land-based, they usually tap trees and do maple. So you maybe reach out to them if you haven't had a chance to experience that, and experience it. Experience that fresh sap and see the process of making syrup. That was the only sugar our ancestors had not too long ago, was this season here. So I see Steve come in. We spent a lot of time with Jim Steyer's Gahan in our time. And he was telling us one time, this season here, maple, it was such a big thing when he was a kid. His grandparents, they moved right in the bush. He said, we've moved right in and lived in the bush. Grandma would pack up what we need. Grandpa was getting everything ready to tap the trees and make syrup, make our sugar. Says they actually moved and lived right in that bush for that whole maple season. Imagine that. And he says his grandmother used to make these balls of dough. I think he called them ojikot or gajikot. I forget what he called them. She made these balls of dough, wrap them all up in cloth. He says they always seem to have cloth. She made these balls of dough, wrap them up and tie them. And she had baskets of that. Boom, boom. She packed them up when they moved back into the bush. So he says that was part of our survival. So she would just take out some of those balls of dough and wet them a little bit, and she'd wrap them up and cook them right in that red hot ashes. They have fresh bread at any time they want. And then they'd have that fresh bread with the fresh syrup. He says, you can't buy that nowhere, that. But it's interesting even hearing them old stories like that. Steve and I were making syrup yesterday. We visited and we remember these things, and sometimes he remembers things that I forget, and Alf remembers things he forget. And we kind of remind one another. That was a story of an elder. He really lived all the way back in his younger days. And his folks, his grandparents. And he shared a lot of his experience, I guess, in the world. And he lived at a time when there was quite a bit of racism. But I think connecting with those stories in our families and our elders, that's helpful too. When you're mourning, when you're struggling with grief, and try to connect with the stories of our people, us. There's stories that'll help give you a different outlook of things and perspective. So when you're grieving, I guess the advice I would share is to expand your horizons and try learn. Make that period of grief a learning experience. And you'll be learning something that'll click and you won't forget, like it'll help you. So then when you see the next person, maybe death happened again next week somewhere, then you have learned a tool that's going to help this next person. And that'll help you because you learn how to survive in something that help you move another step from grief, and you help somebody else with what you learn. So that's the knowledge our elders passed down. And every family had that in your family. But that's where we're lacking and we're struggling is what elder do we go to now? We're kind of standing alone, it feels sometimes. But we're never alone. That's another thing. The elders say, you're never alone, even if you just go somewhere by yourself. Because it's only Seniyun Ta dance between us that are living still. She said that word a while ago. You can say that too. Those of us that are still surviving and those who've gone on, it's only thick as a leaf between us. That's what our elders said. Pass that knowledge down. So even when somebody passes away, you have a feeling you're never going to see this person and be able to talk to them again and what to do about. But it's only thick as a leaf. So if you want to say something to that person, they can hear you. And every now and again, they let you know they're around too. I bet there's nobody in this room can't dispute that one. Sometimes the dearly departed will let you know they're around. And sometimes I have to go and help with that, or they get a hold of this guy here. They get a little carried away sometimes. Huh? But that's your ancestors and our ancestors showing they care still, and they're still bothered with the goings on earth. So when there's a longhouse way, I guess, funeral, again, I was just talking about the wording and trying to explain some of the words passed down that a speaker offers to the bereaved, or Haudenosaunee. I like that word better. You offer words and thoughts to help you through. But see, we were disconnected from understanding that as a group. One time ago, everybody understood that, and I think that's why it was healthier. They had a healthier take when somebody passes away. We have a hard time with it all the time. Families do. So they had a healthier perspective about it one time ago because they understood the languages and understood that knowledge had been passed down. So when a speaker speaks those words to help, it's to help you to keep strong and to survive and to pass through this phase without it taking your mind. So that's some of the things in the speaking that's done. First thing we do, when a person passes, we talk to that person. And we say, we realize there's nothing we can do now. Your trail has stopped on earth. Nisayanokte. So it simply means they stepped off of the earth now. They're not leaving tracks now. So that's some food for thought to think about. So if you put your mind in that one that's gone on's face, they've stepped off the earth only. They're still standing there. So they become a different form, that's all. And like I say, they let you know now and again when they're around. They'll let you know. I don't know if you experienced it or recognize that feeling, but it happens. So when the person passes away, that's how we acknowledge it. There's nothing we can do now because your trail has ended. You're not making tracks on earth no more. So that's the way it is for us. We only have set number a day, and we're no longer leaving a track on earth because we stepped off the earth. So that's simply all it is. They're still walking. That spirit is still walking, but they stepped off the earth. They're in a different form. It's almost like the air. But they're right around us, and that's what they say, it's a thickness of the leaf. Saniyun dance. That's how close it is between us and them, but we don't really notice that. So that's traditional teaching about that. It's only the thickness of the leaf. So if you want to say something to this person that passed away, say it. If you're sorry, sometimes there's remorse. Maybe they weren't getting along. I see this stuff when I'm sharing with you. Maybe they weren't getting along with this person that passed, and they're feeling guilt. Well, express that guilt and release that, at least during that 10 days period. Release that guilt. That person hears you. And it doesn't really matter to them as much as you think. It's more on us. We're trying to, because we know we got to get past this and survive it. So if you're feeling guilt or remorse or anything, say it. And that person hears it. And that'll alleviate that from your mind somewhat. And then after that, smarten up. No, I'm just kidding. When you say, I won't do it again, you mean it. See, my auntie that was old school, she got in my head here somewhat. Huh? Sometimes you got to tell yourself that, though. You know, smarten up. And if you're carrying that remorse or you're carrying that guilt of some kind, that person can hear you. Simply express it. They'll hear that. And I don't think it matters to them as much as it matters to you. Because when somebody leaves Earth, it's a great day for them. They're going to the great beyond where all of our ancestors are. It's big. It's a big deal to them. And they're anxious to get there. That's how it is. But with us that are left, we don't want to let them go. So that's what you have to kind of wrap your brain around, put yourself in their shoes. It's a big deal for them. And they're excited for that journey to the great beyond, which we only have heard stories of. So you put your thoughts on this person that has left Earth, stepped off the Earth. And if you have anything unfinished, unsettled business, release it. And if you can't release it before the funeral, release it during that 10 days, because that person is allowed to come back and forth amongst us. That's why a plate of food is set, because that spirit can journey between the two. It's a slow separation. So they can be amongst us during that 10 days, and they can also see that next world. He lets them come back and forth. So a spirit can be amongst us, and that's why a plate is set. For that whole 10 days, a place is set, plate of food is set. And that's so that person, they can sit and eat with us again, because I think they got to slowly break out of their routine too. So with us, we're breaking out of our routine that we're used to. So when we talk to that person that passed, that's simply all it is, acknowledging their trail. They stopped making a trail on Earth. They've stepped off the Earth now. And all we can do now is take care of the procedures of things when somebody leaves Earth. So we're going to go all out to take care of that. That's how you talk to the person when they pass away. And we hope that we don't fail them in some way. That means we hope that you're not slighted in any way with it, to feel slighted. So we'll do our best to follow what we have to do when someone leaves Earth. That's how you talk to that deceased. So when they get the clothing ready, all kinds of rules with those things too, you know. Some say once you start sewing, you got to finish that. Is that how you guys know that? Yeah? Once they start sewing the clothes, they got to stay at that till it's done? Even if it's all night? Do you just follow that, Rhonda? Like if you hire someone to make their clothing for the dead, do they have to stay at it all the time till it's done? Or can they stop? I got him on the spot over here. I kind of like this. So they go till they finish it for the most part, but a lot of them have it ready. Yeah, that's the answer there. So that's another thing too. Sometimes if the person knows they're in the tail end of life, they might have those things in order. And that's permissible. Mind you, some would say that such honek don't toge. Like it's like an omen you're creating or a death wish. So, but I have seen that. If the writing is on the wall, you only got so much time to live. Some, it takes that off of their mind if they've taken care of that. So if the clothing is already prepared by that person, it's already arranged, it kind of releases the burden from the mourning family too. So there's nothing wrong with that. But not to be too obsessed with it, because you still put up your best fight and live long as you're meant to live. Don't just throw the towel in, or we'd have been dead long ago, our people. You gotta have that fortitude, a little bit of that old school in you, from our grandparents and parents, great-grandparents. So that's how that speaking goes, and we just tell them that we hope nothing troubles their mind in this state they're in. It's big to them, what stage they're in. And once the clothing is ready, and the family hires people to dress them, we gotta speak again once they're dressed. So we speak to the person that passed away, just acknowledging that their trail has ended on earth, but their journey is just beginning. So we went all out, what your clothing you'll have, we prepared and picked things out we thought what you would be satisfied with. That's some of the words you use. We're hopeful you're satisfied and pleased with the clothing they've made or chosen. And they hope you're not feeling slighted in any way if they're lacking on it. So then you try your best to take their mind. I guess I don't know really the right word. Ganikundagwe, aganiguhandagwe. It's like it sounds like lifting the mind off of things. So that's how you speak to the deceased, is to release their mind. So for how many years they journeyed on earth, they collect things and they had things that helped them through day by day, night by night. So we group those all into one ball with the words and say we bundle those all up and we ease your mind from those things. Maybe they were working on something that's only half done. We still take their mind off of that and say that's got to remain here now. You can journey on with a clear mind, and the ones left will take care of things that are remaining. So their mind is lifted off of that. Anything they possessed, anything they were working on. Now, if they were a chief or a clan mother and faith keeper, a little different. We acknowledge the work they've done for the Creator. Because those people in positions, they're working for the Creator. So we acknowledge that as well. If it was a chief that passed, it's a little more formalities too that we have to go through. It has to go a process of going across the fire, and it's a whole nother ball of wax, I'd say, and a whole nother ball game since we're getting near the Blue Jays season, eh, Steve? Come walking in with his Blue Jays jacket on. Anyways, so then once they're dressed like that, then we say, those of us who remain, the lady over here said, that's now, the next thing you know, you tell that person you're speaking, for those that remain, or you could say, so you know, that's food for thought. That word, to me, that means those left surviving. We're remaining here and surviving. We're going to try survive, huh? It's a fight of survival when we lose someone. How do you survive that? So that's the term they're used. Those of us that are surviving, we're remaining and we're going to survive. That's who you speak to for next, and you tell that person that they're wanting you to have a clear conscience of things. So as one, they group all of the ones that were close to you in your mind, and I would say your dearly beloveds, your near and dear. That's that word you'll hear, Haudenosaunee in Cayuga. To me, that's those near and dearest to you. So you bundle them all up And it includes relatives, it includes friends and neighbors. Maybe they had Indian friend, ceremony friend. You group them all up and you lift that off of that person's mind, not to be bothering Yahweh. Not to be troubled with the survivors that are left, that remain, that they want that person to have a clear mind when they take that journey that we're all going to take someday. So they ask them not to be troubled. And even if they see somebody struggling, maybe they're struggling or maybe there's trouble. Sometimes when someone passes away, families don't get along the best that are remaining. So that covers that. That's not to say it's okay, but the speaker covers that. For this person not to be troubled, whatever they see their remaining relatives do. Because sometimes some feel it's a good time to act up. That's the reality. That's because them elders, them old school elders, we're losing them. When somebody starts to act up, when there's a death, they sit them down, talk to them. Even try to get them to talk what's going on here. It's not a good time to act up when someone passed away. In fact, it's a time to sit up straight, mind your P's and Q's, and show respect because this person's on a big journey. And we only have this few days with the body to mourn that loss and to prepare for their journey. So we're kind of losing them elders who would do that. Somebody is acting up. All we can do now is hope they don't do too much damage. One time ago, them elders would go and sit them down. I actually had to take part in that. We sit somebody down in the middle of the longhouse. Say, this is not proper behavior here. What's going on here? And face it head on. So when somebody leaves Earth, yeah, sometimes it's sudden. Gadrowane, do we call that one? So whether it's a sudden death of some kind, so we will refer to that as Gadrowane. Because it's just like something swung and took a chunk out of your world. So this is what we call that. When it's like that, it is kind of a little harder because it catches you off guard. But that's the way that it is. Life and death sometimes is a baby too. I've seen that. And it don't make it any easier if it's an older person either. Or maybe it's a young person right in their prime. Or maybe it's an accident or self-inflicted. So none of them, or maybe a murder, that happens too. And you don't expect that. And you don't quite know what to do. It's a natural thing. It's a natural feeling. It's just something that happens sometimes to some. Like I say, lately in this last little 20 years or so, 15 years, it's been happening too often. It's been happening too often. And as a village here, as a people, as Haudenosaunee people, we got to look at that. Why is this happening more often? We're losing young people to drugs, sudden death. I lost count of that. One time ago, I was like, gee, that's been 5 now. I remember that here. I don't know, I have no idea how many now. Probably multiplied by 10. But I can remember the first 5. Then I remembered my aunt, the seer, told me to prepare my mind because you're going to see this. And I wish I would have listened, damn it. I just kind of go, oh, okay. You don't really expect that, you know. I mean, it's not really happening. All of a sudden it's happening. We're losing young people. We're losing young people too fast and for senseless reasons. For those of us with yado wisdom, that's how it appears, you know. So how do you heal from that? Nobody really has that answer. So you have to keep scratching and looking and try your best to expand your horizons of what you know. Because there's something that'll help you. A little step, every step of the way, take another step. That's what it is. It's like you're taking steps. So even if it's a baby step today, maybe it'll be move the yardsticks 10, get your first down tomorrow. 10 yards. Maybe it'll be just a baby step today. Maybe you'll take a couple steps backward too. That's natural. But the fact that the thing is, it's not going to heal itself. So you got to push yourself. How do I overcome this feeling? And in the language, so when we talk, we address that person that passed away. The reality is they're in a fine state. We don't always realize that. Nothing harming them no more. So if they were sick and they were battling sickness, they're at ease now. There's no more pain for them. They're in a fine state. They joined our ancestors who've gone on. Because in our traditional teachings, it's our dead relatives that come near to escort them. And you'll see that. I don't know if everybody here would have, but you'll see when somebody's nearing death, they get visits from our ancestors. And they'll say, hey, Grandma was here last night. Where did she go? Or Grandpa? Or Mom and Dad? So those people on the other side, remember sickness at a leaf thing. You don't even realize they're amongst us. They're probably right here right now. Because when you're mourning and grieving and you're suffering, they feel that still, because they can see. So they want you to overcome that, because it's pulling on their minds too. So you got to kind of put that thought in your head about that person that's gone on. Maybe sometimes it's not healthy for them if you're grieving too much, because they're in a fine place. So try find that, mix that into the thoughts. That person that's gone on that you're missing is in a fine place, and they've joined your grandparents and parent, whoever has gone on before them. They're in a fine place. And we're all striving to get to that place. So when your breathing ends on this earth, there's no stopping that. They have a lot of artificial intelligence, artificial technologies and things these days, mind you. They can keep somebody on a machine for as long as you want now, but is that really our life? So you got to kind of find that balance and be in Haudenosaunee. If that machine can keep, I would have liked all my elders to stay, but it's just a machine. So their breathing and their time on earth has expired. So I'm being stingy. I want them here still. If it was my call, I'd like every one of them elders I sat with still here. Keep them on the machine. Steve and I'll go cook for them, huh, Steve? We're missing elders we used to eat. We sit and break bread and hear stories of old. And so a little bit of that feeling of me, you've got to find a way to release that with grief. And that's part of healing it. So we're wanting a person to stay around long as we can have them. We don't ever want them to leave us. So you've got to find a way to come to peace with that and say it's their time. They've gone to join their grandma and grandpa, or maybe it's mom and dad. So you got to kind of put your mind in their shoes and say, this is where they're at. They're experiencing something I'm only dreaming about someday experiencing. Someday I might experience that where they are. So that's hard to mix that thought in there, but try mix it in. Mix it in with those feelings of loss and grief, because that person is just fine. That spirit, they're in the spirit world, and there's no pain or no sickness or nothing where they are. So that's the hardest thing to mix that in with the thoughts. And then the other thing is, so we ask this person not to bother with us if we're struggling, if it's even mournful, too much grief, and people get carried away with it. So during this period when somebody passes, we ask that person that passed not to be bothered if they see somebody overly emotional, or maybe they're even trying to cling to them, which we discourage, by the way, with the words passed down. Not to be even touching that body once it's prepared for its journey, because you could bother that person's journey. Your loved one that you're missing, you might disturb their journey. So they, in the longhouse way, pass down, and your encouragement not to touch that body once it's dressed for burial, because they're ready for the journey. So we're only walking alongside of them, as they're making that journey. So that's the talking that's done there, and we acknowledge that if they had used medicines to try to help them get better, and also maybe they belong to ceremonies. Maybe they belong to medicine ceremonies. So we group that all up again with words and remove their mind from that. Say, all of the things we done on earth that was medicinal for you to try to keep your health, don't ever think they failed, because they're still going to help the rest of us. These medicines and these ceremonies are going to continue. But on earth, you're finished with that. So let that be in your mind. That's an example of how we talk to them. That not to think that these medicines or these ceremonies failed some way. So also, if you're sitting there and you understand the language and you hear that, that gets in your head. Because sometimes I know that my mother died pretty young. I was mad at the world about it. Still kind of hits me because she died pretty young, and the doctors were at fault. They didn't detect something. But I mean, you go through these kind of things. You want to blame somebody. So I know that because I experienced it. But then after a while, I think of my mother. She worked her butt off for our lifetime. I don't know how she survived. She raised us and she worked. And sometimes she worked a couple of jobs. So when I kind of got my mind to the point of thinking of my mother, I'm like, she's in a better place, off with her mom and grandparents and the great beyond, you know. She's okay. So I got to be okay. And that's the work I have to do. I got to get on a path of being okay. How am I going to get there? So that's why I say this grief is something that takes work. It's like discipline. How many of you ever tried to learn meditation or yoga? And let's see a show. Okay, the rest of you, that's homework. No, just kidding. I believe that when we have our Gai Wio time, and some of you know what that is, we do that every fall. We travel to our different territories with the wampums. Speakers are assigned to recite what the message in the wampums, the prophecy message. So at that time there, the way I see that, and that was from observing elders, that's like a time of meditation for us and reflection. So you have to nurture your brain and your thoughts and prepare yourself. You're going to be sitting still and listening. And you may not always understand everything, but you get yourself in that frame of mind of sitting still, listening and trying to take that in and just hearing that language. That's one of the messages passed down. So it's like a time for us to get together and have one big meditation. And if you work on it that way, focus on your breathing, calming yourself down, and just listen and try and observe that language being spoken. And if you're learning language, now and again you're going to understand here and there. And you might end up understanding quite a bit after a while. Keep working on it. So that's like a big meditation to me, what we do every fall. So again, some experience that and some don't. But that's part of healing too from grief, because there's messages in there about life and death. It takes us back to the start of time of our ancestors in that teachings. And that's where it also refers to that one that shortens life, has a name, Osundawah Gowa. That's what it's referred to. The great darkness or big darkness, it sounds like, that shortens life. And I always think about the movie, you know, the Hollywood movies there, they show that the Grim Reaper, is that his name there, with the stick? He's got the stick, the sai or whatever that is. That's what I kind of picture, Osundawah Gowa, as like a spirit of death, the bringer of death, Osundawah Gowa. So, I'm forgetting the Mohawks over here. Ne sagwanado kwene Osundawah Gowa. Ne jinigaya lahawi ne kaheya. So the bringer of death, yes, he has a name, but our ancestors knew of that. So we say when somebody leaves Earth, he had a role in this too sometimes. He's the one who brings death. So we don't understand those things, only knowing that he's present. He's present in our world. He can make things happen. And it's in the great law, in that strings, it says just outside the house, that darkness is right there. Is just waiting. And he wants to upset the good work of his brother, the Creator, has done. He wants to upset that, and he's going to try to destroy good business. So if there's good things going on, also does that. He disturbs that. But he also is the one can point a stick and cause someone to fall. Breathing stop. That's in the great law. They say the invisible force of Osundurakoa. That's thousands of years ago. So you have to mix that into your thoughts about life and death. There's an invisible, deadly force outside the door there. Might cause you to slip and hit your head. I've seen people pass away like that too. Barely step outside the door, boom, hit their head and they're gone. That made me think of that. It tells it in there, in your laws, that there's this presence of this Osundurakoa. And it's not only death that it can affect what's going on. If it's goodness that's going on, that Osundurakoa wants to turn it upside down, body slam it. So you have to have your mind strengthened and be strong about it, how you see things unfolding. Because sometimes there's something at work you can't overpower. So when somebody is taken suddenly from us, that's generally what you're up against. It was something that was unpreventable for you. And it's easier said than done to come to terms with that in your mind. But that's something that's passed down with these teachings, that there's a deadly force outside the door of our houses. Outside here, this darkness is roaming. And he can point a stick and cause problems, or he can cause someone to fall. Their breathing will stop. That's what it says in those strings when we have condolence or the great law. There's a couple of parts in there about that. So, in the great law as well, it talks about when that messenger brought that peace to the earth, he brought our ancestors from killing one another, murder and terror, to using their mind, unite their minds, and put your minds together to work for goodness. That'll bind people together in peace, and you'll have health, and you'll have charity, you'll have compassion and caring, and that's going to empower everyone, and that's where strength comes from. So there's a few things he discussed that would empower you. And he says, for all these years you've been killing one another. You've got to stop that now. And you've got to mourn those losses, and then you've got to look forward. So that's simply a vision that messenger gave our ancestors. At the time they were killing one another. Families were killing one another, then they'd get revenge, kill some of this family. That's the state our ancestors got to. So when the messenger comes, he says, you've hurt one another, and the Creator wants it to cease. No more hurting one another. He didn't want one human being to hurt another human being again. So with all that killing and the murdering and the loss and that terror and fear the children are living in, it's going to change now, and it's just like the sun that's rising. The sun rises and it comforts you. You'll feel that warmth and heat and brightness. Your minds are even brightened. So that's the messenger's symbolism he used, was putting an end to warfare, killing, and terror, and he replaced it with good mind, with peace and strength. So then each of them have ideas, ideology, and principles that we got to strive to uphold. So charity, caring, benevolence, being benevolent, there's a law we have too. I wish we could have forced these on the world that arrived at our island to have charity and caring, good mind, benevolence. So the dish with one spoon, they call it, it's actually just one dish in the language. So that is meant everybody would have equal shares of things. Imagine if the world was like that. Even just our world, our people. We're not to have the ones that have and the ones that have not. That's our law. All are to be equal, and you have equal rights. And you have equal responsibilities to one another. That's the laws we have. That's the law of the land. So that has to apply as well when you're dealing with loss and grief and injustices that have happened. And sometimes there's suicide. And there's so many levels of loss and pain and grief we suffer from when we don't quite understand. And some of the older folks told me there's some things that just aren't meant for us to understand. So you got to mix that into your thoughts too. That's knowledge from elders. There's some things in this world that just aren't meant for us to understand. But they don't say what. I wish I had a list and say, okay, does this one qualify? Because we run into those things, right? You just don't understand. But that's what the elders say. There's some things in this world that just aren't meant to understand. That's like a few Fridays ago that whatever the heck happened, a meteorite or what, we still don't know what happened here. Maybe that's one of the things we're just not meant to understand. It definitely wasn't thunder and lightning, but it kind of triggered that after. But I think a meteorite broke through and crashed. Explosion of blue light, LED. How many of you have seen that and experienced that? So some people say, what are you talking about? I brought it up with the Sikh Nation police over here. He goes, what? What are you talking about? I go, oh, okay, never mind. Moved on. But you notice it didn't even make the news. What's going on here? Well, I just filed it as that file where there's some things that's not meant to be understood, I guess, because nobody can explain it. What was that? There was something, I think a meteorite crashed. It lit our sky up blue and shook. My daughter said it almost shook things off her shelf. She lives near the creek over here. So, and the color of that was some unique color. So, what that was, nobody can tell you. I am going to get, one of my relatives can see, though. I just haven't had a chance to sit down with her. I'm going to get her to see and just see what she sees happen there, if she can diagnose it. For my own state of mind, because it's pulling on my thoughts. I'm like, what in the heck was that? And nobody really talking about it. If that had happened in Buffalo or somewhere, it would be on the news every 10 minutes. Nobody even talked about it. So, and there's some people say they heard a helicopter, pop, 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 like those military that lived around Tuscarora Road area. So it's quite a mystery that I'm pursuing, and I probably shouldn't, but my mind is there. Why I'm talking about this is because there are things that we just don't have understanding. So this is how it is for human beings. We don't understand everything. So if anybody finds out what that was, let me know, because I haven't found nobody. They can't eat yet, Karen. They got a quiz before they can eat. We made a deal at the beginning. So the speaking we do is very minimal to the person that has passed away, because they're already knowing they're in a good place, and the speaking is very minimal to them. So the speaking shifts to the people that are left, like she said earlier, those of us left remaining, surviving. Surviving, that's what that means. So you got to find a way to survive. It is a battle of survival. Realistically, you're going to hit that phase. How do I survive this? You can do it. That's what you got to do. Look in the mirror and say, I can do this. I can survive. How you're going to survive it is where you got to work. It don't just get handed to you. You got to work how to survive. So the speaking passed down now shifts to the people that are left on the funeral day. Well, at the wakes, it's just pretty well just there. The people come from outside to keep them lit, keep it lit up for them. Keep it bright is what they call that, tatiati. Keep it bright, keep it lit up all night. So our tradition is to stay up all night. And I know in Ohio, you actually appoint two. In Allegheny, they appoint two. Their job is to sit at each end of the casket all night. Is that how they do that? Or as long as they stay up? As long as they stay up. So they get two that stay up all night. But up here we do wakes most of the time. But if they maybe the person just wanted them to play, we play those bone dice. They do that 2 ways here. So we'll have singers come in, sing all night. Those songs passed down have words in there too. There's words in them songs. I should note, we're within the 10 days of a family that just had a loss too until Thursday. So I acknowledge the family if you're here that suffered a loss. And the old folks that I sat with, they told me during that 10 day, you can go over things to do with this. But we wouldn't really be talking about some of these things just any time, you know. There's a time and a place for that. So we always try to work within the 10 days period when someone passes to talk about these things and understand. And I got to ask my hundreds of questions. Why? What does this mean? What do you say? And like a million questions. So during the time of period, if there's a death, you have 10 days their Creator gave us to mourn that loss and remember that person. Bank away memories that you're supposed to be rolling through the memories. It's just like flipping through your photo album in your head. So you revisit all your memories with this person and you reflect and you remember, reminisce. That's what that 10-day period is for, reminiscing and remembering. So when we have the 10-day feast, that's what we're doing. We're saying for this many days, it's actually nights. For this many nights, these families sat together and they were banking away those memories and reflecting on the thoughts and the memories and filing them away in your memory. Because that's all it is now. It's a memory. So it's a good memory too. But that's what that period of time is for, to be together, reminisce and share stories of that person. That's part of the healing of grief. And I know sometimes people don't even want to talk about it because it's maybe too shocking or too hard, you know. But even just sitting there hearing others talking about this person, they have memories that they share. So it's a time to reflect together and file those memories away. So the other thing is we hold back from really engaging in too much rowdiness or loudness or one time ago they were very strict, you know. You can barely leave the house, huh? Sit still. Sit still. And you're remembering and mourning that loss. And you're reflecting and filing away the memories. So when it comes time to the 10-day feast, then they'll say, for this number of days, we've sat together and reflected, and we've held back from engaging too much in public things because we are revisiting and filing away the memories. So some of the words you'll hear, that gives you a perspective about it. Those are some of the words you'll hear at the 10-day feast. They say that for this number of nights, actually, we count by nights for that. So for this number of nights, you've been holding back from engaging too publicly with things or any loudness in things. because you've been rolling your mind through and banking away these memories. That's what that means, them 2 words. So that kind of gives you a perspective of what that 10 days is about. It's a time of reflection, reminiscing and remembering, and banking those memories. So you don't forget the person. That's what some people have thought. They say, boy, that's really harsh there. You just forget them? No, you don't forget them. But through that time period, you reminisce and remember. And you remember with the friends and family. And I'm sure people have stories you never heard usually. They say, what, that person did that or said this? It's like that. So there can be some humor, you know. Sometimes there's funny things you'll hear that you didn't know. So then that's meant to give you comfort too. So during that time frame, some people want to withdraw and have no part of nothing. That's kind of natural too, but that's when we got to help one another, because it's not healthy. It's healthy to remember and reminisce, and if you got to let tears out, let them out, because it's a time frame for that. Grieving and mourning and remembering, it all goes hands in hand. So now some get caught where they can't release. That's where we need, I wish I could hand you a toolbox and say, here you go, take something out of that toolbox. I guess that's why I'm here today, to try to see if I can help. Because I wish I could help every single family this way. Because there's not too many families that haven't had something hit, and it's hard for them to get past that. So in the Great Law, the messenger said, when Hiawatha lost his daughters, he says, what has happened? It's just like Osundawakoa sent something, and it dropped down and it just hit your fire, and the logs just went scattering everywhere. So now I'm going to gather those logs back up and kindle this fire bright, and it'll pierce the heavens, the smoke, and it'll clear your mind. You'll see the beautiful day and the people around that care. Because when you're in mourning and grief, sometimes you don't feel that and see that, but they're around. There's always people around you trying to show caring, and they don't know really what to do or what to say, but they're there, they want to help. But you may not have noticed that because you're in that state of grief. So there's some of the things in that Great Law that gives you some thoughts, you know, like that's thousands of years ago. When did the message of peace land on earth? So back then they had this thought that something could hit your fire and send the logs scattering all over. So it feels like your fire went out. It's a metaphor. But don't we all experience that from time to time? It feels like something hit your fire and your logs went scattering, and you don't know how to get that fire back going again. That's what the messenger said. This is what can happen. So you need somebody else to reach out and help you. And so you got to open your mind and heart to let that person try help you, because you need to realize we need to help one another. And that's where we have a challenge. We have a tendency not to feel that way, that we need help. And especially the guys that I deal with, and I think the guys have a little harder time with that than the women do when you need help. But so when we speak to the family that's left, I only got a few minutes, by the way. We offer words that are meant to strengthen your thoughts and your mind, to strengthen your mind. So it's like setting some things to ponder on the table in front of you, and that'll help strengthen your mind. It'll help strengthen you from this loss. So they go through the different, I guess, levels of family. So the ones that were close, immediate family, offer words to them, and they say, this person here you were once used to seeing, and there's nothing we can be done now. It has ended that way. You won't see them on earth no more because they've gone on. But what you can do is remember them. And you can remember the last time when you've seen them and it was a healthy exchange with your visit. And maybe they helped you some way. So then they say, now there's nothing we can do. It has ended that way, what it used to be. The way it used to be has ended. But there's still family coming on both sides. That's what we direct their minds to. So you still have relatives on both sides, right down to the children. So there's children present. Take care of them. And that's where your health, they'll help to get you back in balance and strong again. Look after the children. The both sides of the family, there's people all around there, and they're just watching you. And they're hopeful they can help you some way. And they're feeling what you're feeling to a degree. So you have to acknowledge that. That's the words that are offered. To put your mind on that the family still cares about you, the ones that remain. And also, the immediate family is all addressed, and if you had Indian friends and that. And then at the house there's one last speech to the person that died, just say, we've completed as far as we can here, and to remove their minds, ease their mind from that house, and any belongings, and for them to leave with clear mind. And that they're going to take one last journey through the longhouse, usually, if possible. And then they take the path. So they say the path goes off the longhouse and it goes this way here and then up. That's what they. So when we bring a body out of the longhouse, they separate right there for good. The body goes back where it come from to the earth, and the spirit takes that road. And as older folks say, their grandparents and that says, you see that? You can see the journey they took. That's what they call that Milky Way, Haudenosaunee. So that's what they say. So I always kind of picture that in the movies. You see those lamps along the path. You know how you take a path and it's all lit up. There's lamps here and there. That's what I picture from them elders. They say that path to the next world that they take is lit up. So if you look in the sky, you can see that. They say, that means there's like lit up torches, paths that guide you the way. It's like seeing that arrow pointing this way. Huh? That's what I got in my head from listening to them elders. That they took that path that goes up this way. So this is the reason why, too, we lay them that way, their feet go that way. Because that's the way the path goes. So the way they lay the dead out, that's the way the path goes. So again, like I say, when you're grieving and you're mourning, you don't really think about this, like that person's journey. And that's what we got to try to get our heads to, that point of realizing this person is making a great journey. But we think about ourselves usually and how we feel, the loss we feel, and that mournful feeling of sadness, But you got to mix that thought in there, that this dearly beloved is departing on a journey that we're all going to make someday. And that's actually the wording used. We're all going to have this same journey someday. And that we can only walk as far as they go. So we just walk alongside of them till they take that path. So when we go and put that body back into the earth, we just talk to the Creator from there. Because that person is gone. So it's funny, the funeral home guy here, he's seen so much of our people, our families and the loss and that. I pick on him too. Come on, start giving us a discount or something. 3/4 of their business. Steve's telling me, he says, what did you say, 10 out of 15 or 12 or something was Six Nations. Yeah, I was needle them all the time because I'm getting to know them too personally. I don't like that either. That's how much loss there's been, Text the undertaker texting you, I don't like that. You know what I mean? Kind of. I don't think the undertaker should be texting me. I sat back one day, I thought about that. I'm like, where did I go wrong here? Anyways, I pick on them to be, it's in the language we say a death, we say gano or ganoa. I think it's printed the same, Seneca, gano. And that word, it means it's really, really costly thing. It takes a heavy toll out of us. That's what that means. See, that's those of us left, eh? What do you do with them? It's a heavy cost to us when someone leaves. But we gotta think of this person. They've just stepped off and they're journeying on. They're sitting there, don't feel too sad about me. It made me feel good. One of the elders that I sat with for about 30 years, when he started to get sick and he knew the writing's on the wall, and he says, I can tell roughly when I'm gonna leave. Doctors tell me. So he told me that. He says, don't feel too sad for me. I know we spent a lot of time together. He goes, don't feel too sad. He says, that might pull on my thoughts and my journey. He says, don't feel too sad about me. I'm fine. You got to be fine. So he says, don't be too sad. Yeah, it's okay, mourn a little bit, natural. But think of me. He says, don't hold me back from over here. I'm good. In fact, he didn't even want a 1-year feast. He was that good with it. He says, this 10-day feast, don't pull me back for the 1 year. He says, I'm good where I'm going. But he had a near-death experience, and he saw where he was going. That's what happened. So that helped me to mourn that grief, and that was somebody I sat with for more than 3 or 4 decades. So that was tough for me. But he made it easier that way by putting that thought in my head, and then you know what I mean? We don't always get there in our thoughts when someone passes. You only get kind of caught on that feeling you have of loss. Now what, So, again, the speaking we do is to try to help you, give you a perspective, an outside perspective of the situation you're seeing, to help you navigate through so you're feeling good again. So, when death happens, like I say, it's like that thing smash your fire and the logs scatter. But that fire can be rebuilt in a good, nice, comfortable fire again and good smoke. So when the speaking is done at the grave, we just simply tell the Creator. It's funny that why I brought up the undertaker there. He says, can I ask you, what do you say there at the grave? I said, no, that's off the table. That's a no-go. No. Anyways, I was just teasing. I was like, it's not such a mystery. I said, you guys copied 99% of what we were about. You just haven't realized it yet. I said, you know how you're standing there, I see in the movies, right? He's like the ashes to ashes, dust to dust thing. I said, we're not quite that philosophical about it, but similar. We're placing this body back to Mother Earth where she come from, so it can mingle again with the soil it come from. That's it. So I said, we ask the Creator to put them in a good place where they'll have health and contentment. Then we turn away. That's it. So that's all we do at the grave there. They've taken that road now. So then they address the people gathered, and they say, the Creator has given us a period of 10 nights to mourn and reminisce and remember this loss. Then we have to gather, and we'll feast one last time with them. The Creator let that spirit take part in that, and any spirits where they are that want to join. So it's a gathering of our dearly departeds when we have that 10-day feast. So that's why we fixed a nice big platter of food, and the family picks things out that you think your loved one would have liked. And you're giving, it's like feeding them one more time, and we're going to eat together. So it's important to eat too if you go to a feast. Have a bite to eat, because you're feasting with the ancestors and then you're not eating. They're like, what the heck's wrong with you? You could slight them. And this time you're sick this time. So when you go to a feast like that, eat a little bit, because we're feasting with ancestors, and who knows how far back that reaches. So the 10-day feast, it's announced at the grave anyways, and generally the tradition passed down is they'll say this is how many nights are taken. So that's the word you'll hear at the grave. So it's usually Tikni or Asa de Judragwe. De Judagwe. Does that sound right in Seneca? Like it might be Asa de Judagwe. 3 are taken out or something. My Seneca language dictionary is over here. I don't know if you know that. I'm always picking her brain all the time. 25 years, I still haven't got there yet, Marcia, but I'm getting there. Iso nyawe, agwan honyo, because she's here, she's fluent, her first language, their language. And I ask her when I see her words all the time, her and her daughter there, I give them homework sometimes. Say, find out what this is. Then next time I see them, then they'll say, this is what we remember, or maybe we don't need a little more time. So at that 10-day feast, they announced at the grave anyways, how many nights are taken. So usually, now families count different, right? I don't ever step into that fray unless I'm asked, when do you think it should be? And I'll generally say, it's your business. Because families count different. And the reason why that is because some families count the 10 days, and that's the feast. Some go 10 nights, and they might have it on the 10th night, or they might go to the next day. That's the option the families have. So it's not really my business. But if they can't settle it, then it's my business if I'm the speaker. They'll say, what do you think? This is what we're thinking Monday or Tuesday. So then I go through the whole thing. I said, I learned this from our elders, but families vary. So I respect that. But it's usually the 10th night. Most families will say the 10th night, the feast. But there are some go 10 nights and then the feast the next day. So that's your choice. Not my business. It's up to the family to figure that out. If they need help figuring out, you can, help them. But the feasting is done, and the dispersal of the person's belongings is given, and acknowledge the help you had first. So there's a whole list of helpers that you acknowledge. And you say, when this death happened, the family looked out for help, and you were there. And for this many days, it pulled your thoughts, and you were idling, thinking about us and helping us. So everything is clear today. Turn your thoughts over to engaging in what goes on at the ceremonies and in the village. Keep those ceremonies going. That'll help you. And to walk on the path of the teachings. There's your 10-day feast. You just go through the checklist of who all got help. That's pretty well it, in a nutshell. So we direct their minds to carry on now. Because some families actually do set things aside and sit still for that in the house of the person that passed. If you can, that's how you're supposed to do it. Make sure you have family that's sitting together. So you mourn them properly and reminisce and remember. Maybe somebody's got old photographs, there's a time to look at that. And friends and that. Sometimes the friends have more experience and stories than you do. And that's your family. So it's a time to bring that together and share, reminisce, remember. So when there's food set, a plate is set, breakfast, lunch, and supper, up until the 9th day, the 9th night. Then that's the day they start cooking, so they don't set no more food because that dead spirit can engage in those aromas. That's what they say. So no more plates set. Then in the 10-day feast, a huge platter is set, and family members, the ones closest, pick things and set them in there and you put that in there with a memory of that person gone on. Say, hey, this is what my mom liked, or my dad liked, or my brother or sister or my kid. This is what they liked, so you put that in there with them in mind. So they pick items of food and put it aside for the dead. Might even be for your grandparents. That's who they're likely with. So sometimes you'll see old-timey foods, huh? I had a guy one time, his grandfather kept coming to him in a dream, but it was starting to get physical because he wanted this old-timey chew tobacco. So he enlisted my help to try to find this chew tobacco, and I found it in the States that time, I think, some kind of tobacco. Remember that, right? The guy's grandfather was asking for it in a dream. So he had to find this thing. And he had to have a dead feast, and he had to have that there. So, again, go back to that sickness of the leaf thing. And this is a family that they're not really solidly longhouse people, they're not solidly church people, but they have feasts when they need to. There's quite a few families like that, too, in our village. But I think the spirit world, they don't ever let you stop being Haudenosaunee. Those spirits, when they're going to come near you, they're going to come near you. Whether you're Longhouse Church, Band Council, Confederacy, or whatever you are, they don't care. If they choose to come around, they're going to come around. So the 10-day feast, it's really about acknowledging, first of all, the help you received, and they give them an item, give them things to remember and to acknowledge them, and then they move to the close relatives, go through all that. But that's pretty well in a nutshell the message that's given. It's that it's time now to clear our path of things that held us back, and to walk on the path of the teachings. So they give you this item, the person's former belonging is. We say that it's the belonging of that person, even if it isn't, because sometimes they go shopping for new things, but you still treat it like it's a possession of that person. Say they give you this thing as a keepsake to acknowledge the work and the help you gave. So that then it goes that way to that person. Then they go through all of the relatives and loved ones, maybe the spouse, the children, grandchildren, aunts and uncles, cousins, neighbors, friends, Indian friends. It's all a whole list of people acknowledged. And then when that's done, then we symbolically, well, one time ago it was physical, but we dust off the track, the trail that person left, dust it off with a branch, a pine, and then they make medicine with pine and squaita and wash down the house after the feast. That's the whole way. So if you got clothing and things at that feast, some say it should be smoked with pine smoke. So I don't know if that still goes on or not. It's up to the people to do that. You know, like if you get something, some say to do that. So anyways, after the 10-day feast, after the giveaway of things at Gaundogo, the giveaway keepsake and memories, keepsakes and reflection. So they say we have to clear our minds of this now. We've passed this period the Creator gave us to sit in mourning and to reminisce and remember and reflect. So we're clear of that now. We have to turn our thoughts to something else now. The goings on, or maybe it's work, maybe it's sports, maybe it's ceremony time, or teachings. Pick up the teachings and look at them. So then they direct the minds to that, and then they say, that person the dead spirits that we feasted with are now, we're releasing from them, and they can return back where they came from. And we hope that they have peace in their mind and heart and satisfaction, because we gathered for them to honor them and remember, and that if there's anything we left out, so the person's belongings didn't get dispersed or something, you group that all up and say, now the ones are going to take care of that from now on, so the dead don't need to bother with earth goings, the goings on of earth. So we hope they clear their mind when they leave, take that path back where they go, and we hope they're content. So then they symbolically use the word there to dust off the tracks inside and outside the house, and everybody to clear their thoughts and to partake in good things the Creator has given, and don't partake in the things that will harm us. So that's some of the words at the end there. They say it's easy to get tripped up with things that will harm yourself, and it'll break the spirit of the Creator. It saddens Him, some things we do. Remember that and remind yourself. So try to stay on a good path and pick up them teachings to reflect when we part ways. So that's about it in a nutshell. Okay. You're all going to be tested before you can eat. No, just kidding. No, is there any questions or anything? I think we're about at that time. I went a little past what she thought. But any questions, or is good to eat now? It's way against what they Coney. So just before he says, so some people have the 1 year feast still. Actually, quite a few have 1 year feast yet. So that was an old tradition when the Great Law came. Prior to that time, our ancestors would sit for 1 whole year in mourning, and they were strict about it, especially the older folks. They didn't engage too much publicly in nothing. So they took that 1 whole year. So what happened when the U.S. Revolution happened, they got our ancestors fighting again, so we took up warfare again. And that warfare led us into fighting one another again. So there was killing and there was too much death again. So when the last message comes through one of our Seneca chiefs, Kaiwiyo came, the messenger said, there's too much mourning because you've barely cleared one loss. You're almost through a year of loss and mourning, and another one has died. Then you're in another year of loss and grief and mourning. It's like you're in a continued state of grief, and that is not healthy. So they say from now on, the Creator says, you can have this 10 days, but you can still think of them at the anniversary. That's kind of how that's left. So families will still have a 1-year anniversary feast, but they don't have to. It can be finished at that 10-day feast. That's the way it is for us. So some still have the 1-year feast, and sometimes that gives them a little more clarity of mind too, to disperse or what they're going to do with the belongings, the properties or the belongings of the person that passed. So the feast is done in 1 year, and it's just simply a tobacco burning to explain why we're gathered and who it's for, and to acknowledge we took proper care when they left Earth, but we're still thinking of them a year later, one last time with a feast. So you throw tobacco down for the chosen platter of food for them. Hope they're satisfied, the ones who've gone on before us. That's pretty well it in a nutshell. There's one thing I didn't touch on at the 10-day feast. If a spouse passed away, they passed down this tradition of combing the hair to release that widow or widower. So we're out of time today. They'll have to come some other time. I can hear your stomachs. Just kidding. What don't go you? Kagwin. Wagatonda ne sadonko ji gwatagane sadonkayaks. You're really hungry, huh? Well, I guess help yourselves, eh? What again was back of the room. Just go in. We always go this way, huh? When we eat. Yawa.